When Japanese entities invade Earth, a group of students will have to face a series of insane tests in order to survive. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie As the Gods Will from 2014. Among the students in Tokyo, a young man called Shun Takahata always stood out for his great intellect. But because he was smarter than the others, he began to feel bored and asked the gods for a challenge. At his request and that of other gifted youngsters, the Daruma entity invades Shun's room, who is so distracted that he doesn't even notice the spirit right in front of him. Because of this, he almost moves and narrowly misses a brutal fatality, escaping having his brains blown out at the last second. Realizing that they can't move while the puppet looks on, the other students stand still and wait until he turns around, taking advantage of the moment to run for the door, only to discover that they are locked in the room until the game is over. As they try to leave, Daruma turns around and blows the heads off two participants in the doorway, then turns back around. Desperate, the students begin to panic and the young Satake manages to calm everyone down, explaining that they are trapped inside the Daruma Sanga Kuranda, a game in which the entity turns its back and starts repeating the name of the challenge, turning around as it finishes the sentence. From the moment Daruma faces the students, those who move will have their brains turned into thousands of little red balls. When everyone is despairing again, Satake tells them that he has a way to end the challenge and warns them about the button on the doll's back, saying that all they have to do is press it to end the game. Wanting to end the nightmare, another student takes advantage of the fact that Daruma is speaking slowly and decides to run towards him, but as soon as he realizes this, the entity finishes the sentence at an absurd speed and turns around immediately afterwards, seeing the student move and making his head pop like popcorn. Instead of staying calm and thinking of a way to beat the entity, the students notice the counter on Daruma's back and become even more desperate when they discover that there is less than a minute to go until the challenge is over, causing most of them to run towards the doll and get eliminated. With just over 10 seconds left, only Shun and Satake are still standing and they decide to join forces to win the challenge. The bespectacled young man then bends down and serves as a support for Takahata to jump, managing to press the button on the doll's back with 1 second left on the clock. After being defeated, Daruma announces that the game is over and both Shun and Satake celebrate, but while they're greeting each other, the other young man's head explodes and the crazy doll announces that only Takahata has pressed the button, so only he has won the challenge. Unable to believe what has just happened, Shun begins to ask for help when Daruma interrupts the silence to say that he is a mouse and that the cat is coming. The clue to the next challenge. Suddenly, the living room door opens and her childhood friend Ichika Akamoto appears in a state of shock. Wanting to help her, Takahata approaches her and asks what happened, discovering that she also went through the Daruma Sanga Kuranda, but that when the girl pressed the button, all her classmates were automatically eliminated. When he hears the story, Shun tells him that the same thing happened to him and says that they should call the police, but when he picks up his cell phone, he realizes that they have no signal at all. Still, Takahata insists that they should call the authorities and suggests leaving the school, but finds all the doors locked, except for the entrance to the gymnasium. As soon as they enter the court, the door behind them closes and they are once again trapped, but at least they are not alone. In the center of the court, several other students are gathered and some of them are dressed as rats, taking on the role that Daruma said. As he approaches, Shun sees some kanji on the ground and realizes that they are the instructions for the next challenge, saying that they must give the bell to the cat in order to win. With the game about to start, one of the costumed students recommends that everyone puts on a rat costume and says that they don't know what will happen if they don't, but before they can put anything on, the ground opens up underneath them and a gigantic Maneki Neko appears in the center of the court. Suddenly, music starts playing and the giant cat statue moves, devouring one of the students in costume. Desperate, the students run and the pussycat advances towards Ichika, but instead of devouring the girl, the entity just turns around and stretches out its spring-like neck to swallow other students in costume. While running through the place, Ichika sees a bell rolling on the ground and Takahata immediately notices the basketball hoop hanging from the satanic cat's collar, making him finally understand the message written on the ground. After Shun tells everyone about the bell, one of the students on the basketball team asks Ichika to pass the object and he throws it towards the basket, but despite his excellent aim, the porcelain cat manages to block the shot and throws the ball all the way towards him, smashing the poor guy against the wall. After eliminating yet another student, the cat looks directly at Shun, but again, instead of attacking him, the entity just turns to another person in costume. Takahata finally realizes that the cat is hunting the mice and warns the others to take off their costumes, but just when everyone thinks they're safe, the Maneki Neko starts moving again and is now devouring everyone. Desperate, the students run across the court and Ichika ends up falling next to the bell, realizing that they only have 3 minutes left. At that moment, the cat approaches the girl and opens its giant mouth to devour her, but just as it is about to swallow her, Shun appears dressed as a mouse and manages to distract the cat. As he runs from side to side dodging the creature, Takahata asks someone to throw the bell, but everyone is afraid of meeting the same fate as the player and refuses. Just then, Shun begins to hear a strange voice and realizes that, now that he's wearing the costume, he can understand what the cat is saying. Paying attention to the voice, the young man realizes that the creature has an itchy back and is asking someone to give him a massage so that he can sleep. Now that he understands what it wants, Shun runs to the back of the cat and jumps on its back, holding onto the ropes so he can scratch the creature. As soon as he starts doing this, the kitten seems to like it and stops trying to attack him, begging for more and more. Knowing that it won't be enough, Shun asks the other students for help and Ichika jumps in to accompany him. Right after her, the other students also jump on the cat's back and they all work together until they get him to sleep. Now that it has gone out, Takahata picks up the bell and prepares to throw it as the other students approach. Afraid that only the one who throws it will survive, they start arguing about who will throw the bell and the cat ends up waking up at the noise, slicing up 2 students in one go. With no time to make him sleep again, Shun hatches a plan and decides to take a torn basketball, as well as asking Ichika to accompany him to the locker room with the bell. Before long, the two of them return with the ball and the bell wrapped up in the mouse costume and each advances on one side, leaving the cat confused as to which throw to defend. While running towards the kitten, Shun accidentally lets everyone see that he has the ball and the entity prepares to defend Ichika's throw, but it was all part of the plan. Taking advantage of the fact that he has turned to his friend, Takahata reveals that he has the bell underneath the torn ball and throws the object towards the creature, but he ends up missing his aim and the bell falls into the basket. Just when everyone thinks they've lost the challenge, a tough student called Amaya appears above the cat and dunks the ball in the basket, winning the challenge at the last second. Suddenly, the giant Maneki Neko shuts down and reactivates after a few seconds to declare Amaya, Shun and Ichika the winners. Not hearing anyone else's name, Takahata wonders what happened to the other students, until he sees Amaya knocking them all out with an iron bar. Completely insane, the young man comes walking towards the two and tells Shun that they have been chosen by God, so only they deserve to survive. Upon hearing this madness, Ichika tells him that he's completely insane and that he shouldn't compare himself to Takahata, but Amaya doesn't like this at all and advances towards the girl, forcing Shun to hold him back. At that moment, the cat starts blowing a cloud of gas and all 3 of them black out almost instantly. All over the planet, people are already hearing about the challenges and broadcasters are beginning to cover the disappearance of young people, as well as the appearance of huge floating cubes that have spawned simply out of nowhere. Inside one of these cubes, Shun wakes up startled to find Takase, an old schoolmate who was transferred a few years ago. In addition to her, Takahata notices the presence of 2 other students in the room, Taira and Tauka, who also managed to survive the challenges of Daruma-san and Maneki Neko at their respective schools. After meeting his colleagues, Takahata realizes that everyone there has surnames that begin with the letter T and assumes that there are other rooms in the place where they are, separating the survivors in alphabetical order. With this information, Shun remembers that Ichika's surname is Akamoto and becomes afraid that she is in the same room as Amaya, but as the door is locked, there is nothing he can do to help her. Hoping that someone might hear him, Takahata starts knocking on the door until he is interrupted by Taira, who is an extremely arrogant genius. The young man then says that no one will come to help them and activates a hologram that shows reports about the cubes around the world, revealing that they are trapped inside and have no option but to wait for the next challenge. Just then, someone starts knocking on the door, which mysteriously unlocks, allowing 4 Kokeshis to enter. Once inside the room, one of the 4 totems invites Taira to play, and being a man brimming with self-confidence, he accepts without a second thought. With the first participant chosen, the puppets explain a little more about the challenge and reveal that he will be taking part in the famous Kagome Kagome, a traditional game in which one person is chosen to sit blindfolded in the center of a wheel of spirits. Once the person is in place, the entities begin to walk around the chosen one while singing a song. Once they have finished, the spirits will give 10 seconds and the participant will have to guess which entity is behind them, being eliminated if they get it wrong. Thinking it's going to be easy, Taira puts on his blindfold and sits down on the floor, very excited, but when the Kokeshis stop singing, the genius gets nervous and ends up making a mistake. As a way of punishing him, one of the puppets opens its eyes and shoots a beam of light that gives it control over the young man's body, causing him to bang his head until his skull smashes against the floor. After defeating the first participant, the Kokeshis invite Tauka to play, but she refuses because she's scared. One of the dolls then says that she will be eliminated anyway and the girl ends up accepting so that she at least has a chance. When it's her turn to guess which totem is behind her, Tauka is so afraid of getting it wrong that she ends up exceeding 10 seconds and is automatically disqualified. Frightened, Tauka tries to run away and is soon surrounded by the Kokeshis who fire that beam at her forehead, but unlike what they did to Taira, this time each of the totems pulls the girl's leg to one side, causing her body to split in half. After defeating yet another student, the Kokeshis challenge Takase to play, but seeing the state she's in, Shun knows his friend won't be able to win and offers to go in her place. Now blindfolded, Takahata sits in the center of the room and listens intently to the Kokeshis sing. But when it's time to guess who's behind him, the young man takes too long and one of the totems announces that time is up. At that moment, Shun shouts out loud which puppet is behind him and the totems repeat that time is up, but the young man shows that he recorded everything and that they ended the challenge with only 6 seconds, so he answered within the time allowed. Curious, the puppets ask how he got it right and Takahashi says that in the previous 2 rounds, they kept the same formation and it was the same Kokeshi who announced the end of time. So all he had to do was wait for the puppet to say something to know where each of them stood. As he guessed whoever was behind him in less than 10 seconds, the dolls turn to dust and a key appears from their ashes. With no more obstacles, Shun and Takase take the object and leave the room, but as soon as they pass through the door, they find a student who also has a key and is being chased by another Kokeshi. Desperate, the young man warns them that this totem is chasing lonely students and asks them to hold hands, then joins them. The totem then approaches and, after making sure that the trio are really together, goes off to look for another lonely person, leaving Shun's group with 2 keys. While walking through the corridors of the cube, the trio hear something and run towards the scream, discovering that the sound is coming from Ichika, who is being chased by that same needy doll. Wanting to help his friend, Shun lets go of the other 2's hands and jumps towards Ichika, holding the girl at the last second before she is caught by the lone totem. In the next corridor, 2 other students find a giant wooden head stuck in the wall, with a counter on its forehead and 7 locks to put the keys in. Hearing the noise, Shun's group runs over and finds the pair who also have 2 keys. When they add them all up, they realize that they have 4 keys and another 3 are missing, but as they have just over 2 minutes to find the remaining objects, they begin to despair. At that moment, someone throws the 3 keys at their feet and Amaya appears soon after, bringing with him another student he was using to circumvent the needy totem. Now that they're about to go to the next stage, Amaya swats the other student away like a bug and offers to join the group. As they need the keys to go on to the next challenge, the students accept his company and then place the 7 items in the wooden head, opening the passage to the next stage. At this point, the giant head tells them to change their clothes and then retreats, opening a tunnel through which they walk until they reach the other side. In the new snow-covered place, the group feels the ground shaking and soon realizes it's because of a giant polar bear doing snowboarding tricks. After finishing his radically crude presentation, the polar bear says that he hates lies and that's why his next challenge will be to answer your questions as honestly as possible. The bear then says that he will warn them if any of them lie and that the group must choose who they think is the liar, moving on to the next stage as soon as they manage to find the traitor. With all the rules explained, the bear asks what everyone's favorite food is and everyone breathes a sigh of relief, thinking it's easy. After their response, the bear-shaped entity starts sniffing and says that it smelled a lie in the air. Now that they've broken the only rule of the game, the polar bear tells them they have 2 minutes and lets the group decide who they think is the liar. After a minute of accusations, most of the group points at the young man that Shun and Takase saved and the white bear smashes his body immediately afterwards, turning the young man into mush with the back of its hand. With the first suspect eliminated, the wooden entity moves on to the next question and asks if they like Shun. As they are in love with the young man, Ichika and Takase declare their love for him and Amaya also says he likes him. After everyone answers, the spirit says that one of them lied and Ichika automatically accuses Amaya, saying that earlier he tried to eliminate them. As the two argue, Shun wonders why anyone would lie even if they knew they could be eliminated and the entity laughs, saying that he has finally realized it. The bear then explains that one of his servants is among them posing as a human and lying to eliminate them. Upon hearing this, the pair from the other school come to the conclusion that the imposter could only be Takase, since they studied together and Shun, Ichika and Amaya went to the same school. Therefore, they all knew someone before the challenges and arrived there together, except for her. As soon as they hear the accusations, Ichika and Shun try to defend Takase, but the others simply ignore them and vote for the girl at the last second, causing her body to be crushed. All that's left is a pile of blood. Ready to ask his next question, the bear begins to speak when he is interrupted by Shun, who claims to have already found out who the traitor is. Curious, the entity stops to listen to the assumption and is surprised to realize that Takahata is accusing him of lying. The young man then says that Takase helped him find out and tells him that the girl's blood removed the white paint from the creature's fist, revealing that the polar bear is actually a black bear. As he lied about his color, Shun automatically came to the conclusion that everything else was also a lie and that the entity was making them think there was a traitor. All this just to eliminate them. Angry that someone has discovered his secret, the demon bear begins to attack them and tries to crush the group by jumping on them, but misses his target and ends up trapped in a hot spring that makes his body burn from the inside out. With that, the entity finally accepts its defeat and gives the instructions for the survivors to reach the location of the next challenge. At the new location, the students are greeted by a set of dolls who tell them that their next and final challenge will be the game known as Kick the Can. In this underworld hide and seek, one of the participants will be chosen as Akuma, the one who will search for the others. But before starting the search, this player will have to take a can that is protected in a high place and place it in the middle of a circle on the ground. While Akuma tries to get the can, the others need to find a hiding place and stay there until sunset if they want to win. On the other hand, to win, Akuma must locate each of the participants and shout their name, then stomp on the can. Once this is done, Akuma captures the target, who will be imprisoned in a cell until the end of the game. The dolls then explain that even so, the captured person can still be saved if one of the survivors manages to kick the can. In this way, this person defeats Akuma and frees all those who have been imprisoned. But according to the dolls, the can has some kind of explosive that will be triggered as soon as it is kicked. This means that by kicking the object to save the other prisoners, the participant will automatically lose their life. In an abridged version, the survivor's objective is to stay hidden until sunset, while Akuma's objective is to capture 3 people and prevent the last one from kicking the can. Now that they've finished explaining how it's going to work, one of the dolls takes some wood sticks out of its mouth and draws lots to choose who will be Akuma. And to everyone's misfortune, the winning participant is Amaya, the craziest of them all. Knowing the challenge they will face, the survivors stay in their positions and wait for the doll's command, but as soon as they start the game, Amaya kicks one of them over the can, knocking the object over without giving the others time to hide. With the can in hand, he places it in the center of the circle and starts looking for the other participants, finding the 2 students from the other school as soon as they find a hiding place. Wanting to save themselves, the 2 even try to take on Amaya, but the young man is so overpowered that even in 2-on-1 they are defeated, being captured and taken to the cell soon after. From afar, Ichika watches Amaya step on the can, but ends up being careless and is spotted by him, giving away her location and Takahata's to Akuma. Knowing that Amaya is already on her way, Shun ties a rope to a heavy object and starts climbing down to try and reach the can. Wanting to capture the couple, Amaya runs to the place where he saw Ichika and starts banging on the door trying to reach them. Knowing that they won't be able to escape together, the girl decides to save time and goes just below to find Akuma, but instead of speaking our name and going to the can, Amaya just knocks the girl out and continues up to find Shun, finding only the rope he used to get down. Down below, Takahata knows that the Akuma is going to keep an eye on the can and starts running around the place looking for a new hiding place. Thinking that Shun won't come, Amaya tries to convince him that he won't capture him and argues that he has already tagged 3 people, so the 2 of them can become friends and survive together. Knowing that he's lying, Shun starts looking for something he can use and finds some plate armor. When the sun is about to go down, he comes out of hiding wearing the armor in order to protect his body when he kicks the can. But the problem is that the equipment is extremely heavy and restricts his movements. Even so, Shun appears awkwardly in front of Amaya and ends up dropping his sword on the ground, trapped and totally defenseless near the edge. Since he can only arrest someone after seeing their face, Amaya takes advantage of the situation and removes Takahata's helmet while mocking his plan. Just short of stepping on the can to win, Akuma walks towards the object when he realizes he has a chain attached to his hip. It is then revealed that this was Shun's plan all along. Before leaving the hiding place, the young man attached the chain to his armor and took advantage of the moment when Amaya took off his helmet to tie the other end around his waist, preventing him from reaching the can. Now that Amaya can no longer win, Takahata throws himself off the edge into the sea, dragging the Akuma, who has to try very hard not to fall with him. Down below, Shun waits to touch the water and gets out of his armor to climb back up the wall, allowing him to walk freely to the can while Amaya pulls all that weight out of the water. When he arrives back at the top, Shun is already very tired, but he still manages to find the strength to run to the can. At this point, Amaya finally manages to pull the armor back on and breaks free to run towards the can, but even with his efforts, Shun manages to get there first and kicks the object, saving his friends. Frightened, everyone tries to protect themselves from the explosion, but after a few seconds nothing happens. Just then, the sky begins to darken and the dolls appear to declare Shun the champion, as well as revealing that they lied about the explosion just to make the challenge more exciting. Disgusted by his defeat, Amaya begins to moan that he's going to be eliminated, but the dolls tell him that the whole challenge was just a game and that no one is going to perish. As a reward for making it this far, the dolls hand each of them a popsicle and tell them that they must eat it before they can leave. After this journey, Shun sips his popsicle while making plans for the future with Ichika. After talking for a while, the young man notices that there's something written on his toothpick and celebrates with Ichika, thinking it's an award, but when he looks away, he sees that Ichika is crying and discovers that her popsicle stick has "You are eliminated" written on it. At this point, the dolls speak again and explain that each of the challenges required a different skill, but that in the end, the last thing they need is luck. They then explain that everyone's popsicle has their fate written on it, and Ichika's is the one everyone knows. Looking at his popsicle stick, Shun realizes that he has been lucky and that he will make it out alive, but instead of Ichika, it will be Amaya who will return to school with him. Now that their fates are sealed, Ichika and the other two students are hit by one of the dolls that fires a laser into their bodies, leaving only traces of their souls. With the last challenge completed, Amaya and Takahata are taken up into one of the cubes that is flying over the city of Tokyo. Seeing that two students have managed to survive, the entire population begins to worship them and call them children of God. And as such, one of them will follow the path of destruction to become a Hakaishin, while the other will follow the path to become a Shinigami, a god of death. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.